Hello team, welcome to my session on Coffee with Prab, and today we're going to discuss about data privacy fundamentals. And in this video we're going to discuss about end to end whatever is required for data privacy. Everything is covered in this program. This program is designed for the lawyers, aspiring data privacy professional who want to understand what is data privacy, what are the things happen around data privacy, how to secure the data, what is the principles, regulations, everything. It is the first kind of a video on YouTube which talk about end to end the fundamentals of data privacy. And I'm sure after this video you will get a lot of insights about data privacy, and this video also talk about the careers and everything. Okay, and if you have a zero experience, zero information about what is privacy law and everything, then this video is for you. So without wasting a time, let's start with the first part. Thank you. So before we jump into detail about privacy and all that, let's understand from basics. Privacy is like my thing, my choice, like my health reports, my medical records, and I don't want that information to be shared with others. And let me give you an example. Let's say example, you go to the school. Okay. In the school, you carry your bag. The bag has the toys, the bag has a lunch, bag has a diary, bag has a drawing. And this something is very personal to you. Okay. And you want to make sure this information should not be shared with others. If someone is doing, it's a breach of law. You can see like that. So privacy mean other people should not open your bag. They should not look inside or take your thing unless you say, okay, suppose you are in a relationship and neighbor is asking you who is the girl or who is the boy. So it's like something personal to you. They should not breach. When you have a choice, you can share, but they cannot interfere with your privacy. So privacy mean a set of information which is identify you as an individual and that respect your opinions and all that. Okay, your health records, WhatsApp chats, all are basically privacy for you. Now we have a different type of privacy. Okay, actually we only have one privacy, but I just categorize here. One is called data privacy, which is like name, address, online behavior from unauthorized access. I'm sure you have noticed some of the biggest giant track your activities. If you search something, next day you'll see all the ads related to that. So it means they're collecting your personal data, emotions and all that, and that's why they're able to customize the marketing. Nowadays there's a new concept is coming, is bodily privacy. When you're wearing this digital watch and all that, it track your health reports and all that. So it right to the physical integrity protection from invasive search or medical procedure without consent. You went to hospital, the hospital is sharing those health records with other for the research purpose. Then we have a communication privacy. Communication privacy mean, you are speaking to someone and someone is intercepting the information. You are not comfortable with that. That is a communication you want to maintain. Fourth is you have a house, you want to make sure no one should able to interfere there. No one should able to install any mic, no one should able to install the camera. So that is called right to a private space, which free from intrusion or surveillance. So that is basically called as a privacy. Now the question is, when you're talking about privacy, why privacy matters to you, okay, to business and to society? And there is a different dimension we have. See, for me as an individual, I want to protect from identity theft. Let's say example, someone used my picture, someone used my address and tried to convince my relatives for the money. I'm sure you have seen nowadays your pictures, your other sensitive information has been used, and they use for your neighbors, use for your friends and collect the information. So as an individual, I want to protect from thefts, identity thefts and fraud. As an individual, I want to control over my personal reputation. And I will give an example of that. In India, during a COVID time, there's a lot of instant loan application startup was there. So with a single click, they will give you a loan and you have to install one app. And then what happened, that app take control of your phone and extract all the records, SMS, WhatsApp chats and images. And next day onwards, they start sharing that information with your relatives. It is actually saying that, okay, your friend is not giving me money back. So it means that app has access to all the call logs and everything. And now they are sending the messages to your relatives that you are not giving money back. You have taken loan from us. So, and because of that, what happened is there's a lot of people did suicide. Third is called freedom from unwanted surveillance. So individual want someone should not monitor them and maintain their personal decisions. They should, no one should able to control the decision, like, manipulating of elections and all that. Now, one more important thing you need to understand that, okay, as an organization who collect your personal information, okay, they also need to maintain the security of your privacy. Why? Because this is how they can able to build the trust. Let's take example. This is you went to the bank to open the account. Now bank has collected your Aadhaar card, bank has collected your passport. So based on a trust you shared, but next day what happened, you start receiving a call from a credit card department of the bank. So here what happened is customer lost the trust on the bank. Oh yeah, this is the same bank, who always share my data. Second thing is that as an organization, if they don't protect your personal information, then they might need to pay the fine. So they want to protect the data because for the regulatory compliance and avoid the fines. The third is competitive edge in privacy conscious market. As you know, there is one of the biggest bank who hold one of the huge amount of money is Swiss Bank, and they are very competitive in the market because of maintaining a privacy of the individuals. And last is reduce the risk of data breach. Now from a society point of view, if you don't protect the privacy, then democracy and free speech will be compromised. We have to protect against the discriminations, because when we start collecting this privacy information and all that, we can able to look for the patterns, which is not good for the society. And as a society, we need to enable the innovation with responsible data. We should not collect too much data, which is happening nowadays in AI. So privacy as a parameter is matter from person to person. From an individual, we have a different perspective. For an organization, we have a different perspective. And for the society, we have a different perspective. So I will give an example here, the real world example. There is a hospital who exposed the patient records. Okay. Hospital has exposed the patient record. Because of that, what happened, individual lose his job due to the disclosure of health conditions. See, there was a job company which say you should not have this illness. Because her hospital got hacked, his medical information was out, and because reason the person doesn't get a job. In return, what happened, that organization, health company, have to pay the 10,000 million fine. And in that case, society also loses the trust in a healthcare digitalization. So you can see how they are all correlated. Let me give you one example. Let's say example, you go to pizza delivery shop. Okay. So you give your name, you give your phone number, you give your address for the delivery. Normally when you order anything, you share your name, phone and address. You don't need to, it's up to you. Okay. So it's up to you, you want to share more information, you can share, you can give the building name, that's okay. So this is where we say collect the minimum data. Now, what the company did, they call when driver will arrive, and that's why they have asked for the justification. This is the expected, because that's why we share the number, so that when the delivery reach your location, they can give you the call, because that's the reason you're giving your phone number. Now, what happened is, instead of you receiving a call from the pizza company and all that, you getting a gym membership call. Hey, we can see you have ordered pizza. It's not good for the health, and to tummy your things and control your habits, build a good physics, we have open a gym and we giving you partnership. So here what happened, I trusted that app and I shared the information because I want a delivery confirmation. But what happened here is, the company has shared the information to others. So this was the food aggregator app, and this is the gym. As a user, I shared my information with the food aggregator app, which is a pizza company. Based on a trust, when they come, they will give me a call. But instead of that, that company has shared this information with gym, and gym giving me a call, which is called as against the privacy. Okay. So now what happened? They have said we're not going to save your numbers, but they have saved my order history forever and retention beyond the necessity also. And tomorrow what happened? Database got hacked, address was leaked, and they failed the protection, the obligations. So here what happened is, did you agree each of this? Did you even know this, what will happen? And most privacy law to answer one question, what can organization do with my data? What control do I have? So if you take an example of any data privacy regulation, one of the biggest principle, they say that collect only limited data, and if you're collecting, give the justification. That's why it's a very common thing for any regulation. Now let's understand about the basic terminology that we use in data privacy. So what happened is, in data privacy, we use several terms. So first is called as a personal data. Let's say example, my name is Prab. Okay, my name, my email ID, my IP address, my photo. Now I went to the bank, okay, to open the account. Okay, so Prab information is one thing, but by that information they will identifying me as a Prab. So that is called data. So person whose data is being processed, like which is me. Now who will process? The bank. So I went to bank. So if anything happened tomorrow, any security breach happen, is a bank who answerable to Prab. Okay, so Prab has given him Aadhaar card, Prab has given his passport, Prab has given his all the insurance records and all that. So in this case, Prab is a data subject. His personal data is there, and bank is called as a data controller. He is data controller mean the one who accountable for the data, okay, of the data subject. It is an entity decide why we collect in, how we going to process data. Now the bank is using a one CRM company, a cloud-based CRM company. So bank hold the data in that CRM, and CRM is hosted on the cloud. So this CRM is not owned by the bank. Bank is subscribing to some service providers, SaaS solutions and all that to feed the entries and generate the receipts. So in this case, CRM is called as a data processor. But tomorrow, any kind of a security breach happen in the CRM, it's a bank who answerable to Prab. Remember that, okay? So bank is the legal accountable for the data protections, and data processor is responsible for processing data. So in this case, the pizza delivery, because I have trusted pizza delivery, I shared my details. So pizza delivery guy is the data controller. Now pizza delivery using a third-party agents generating invoice. So they are the data processor. And processing of information, collecting information, the overall concept is called as a processing. So think about it, when you sign up for the newsletter, you is the data subject. The company is called data controller. Their email services, MailChimp, are the data processor. Your email address equal to personal data, sending email, this is all our processing. So you need to really understand these particular metrics. So now when you're talking about data privacy, we have three important pillars. Okay, so first is data privacy. It means the right and expectation. And as a company, when we collecting data, we should tell them why we collecting, and how we're going to store. So data privacy focus on what is the rights and expectation. Okay, my rights. Now the company who going to collect his data, okay, so they need to have a proper security safeguard on that. If you take a same example of a pizza company, so in pizza company, when they're collecting my email address and all that, they need to protect some encryption, they need to protect some protections and all that. Is it clear? Like they should protect with a password or encrypt the data and all that. That is called data security, which focus on what is the technical safeguard we have on the data, what they collected, and the overall governance of that, overall operation of that. That is called as a data protection, which focus on comprehensive governance. How do we manage data responsibly? So I'll give an example. So let's take example, a house. Okay, so privacy is like your right to decide who enter your home. Okay, that's the principles and all that. Security is a lock, alarm, camera protecting your home, and protection is a overall home safety policy, including insurance and all that. So I will give another example. You know, the Facebook, the social media has an excellent security, hard to hack, but poor privacy practice. And if you heard about the Cambridge Analytica scandal, the data was shared inappropriately, not stolen. So sometimes the company having a great security, great protection, but in that process, they're sharing some data with others. Is it clear? So data privacy is a principle, security is a control, and better protection is overall governance we have that we are talking about. Now let's understand about the brief history about the data privacy, which is very important for us to understand. Do you know in 1980s, it was the first time the first legal articulation of privacy as a right was introduced, Mr. Warren. Then in 1948, the UN has declared the Human Right Article 12 as a privacy recognized as a human right. It means if I have some information, I can decide to whom I need to share. In 1970, the first data protection law, Germany has introduced. Then in 1980, the privacy guideline on an international level was introduced, where the multiple countries had followed that guideline. And as a privacy student, as a lawyer, you should know what is OECD, even you working in a company as a data privacy officer. Then in 1995, EU Data Protection Directive was introduced, which is a comprehensive European privacy framework for Europe region. And in 2016, GDPR was adopted, which is a global data standard for privacy regulation for Europe. And in 2018, they have enforced that. And you'll be surprised to know that in 2020s, there's a global privacy law explosion happen, and 150 plus countries now have a privacy law. In India also, we have a DPDPA. So privacy law accelerated during a time of technological change. Just as a printing press led to the corporate law, the intent led to the modern data protection. See, we are saying now, like, privacy is a protection which is enforced from the law. So law is playing a very important role to enforce this kind of a regulations. It's very important for you to understand. Okay, so if you take example, law. So what is law here? Law is introduced to protect the interest of the citizen of any country. Now, then we introduce the regulations. Regulations. So in India, if you take example, if you want to start a bank, you need to be comply with RBI. If you want to start any kind of food services, you need to be comply with FSSAI. If you want to start an insurance company, you need to be comply with IRDA. So regulation was introduced to control a specific industry. That's why privacy will be backed and supported by the regulation, and regulation is backed and supported by the law. Because if you fail to comply with RBI, if you fail to comply with FSSAI as per the law, they will enforce a penalty. That's why, we have a two type of data. One is called as a data privacy, and one is called as the data secrecy. Data privacy is a set of information deal with individual, and data secrecy is a set of information deal with organization. That's why in the organization, their business secrets are called as a trade secret. Okay, so data secrecy, data secret is basically deal with enterprise, and data privacy is deal with the individual. So now we're going to discuss about how do you see the human history as a law or other perspective. So when you're talking about international law, so UN Declaration of Human Rights has a Article 12 that no one shall be subject to arbitrary interference with his privacy. And later on, ICCPR, which is called International Convention on Civil and Political Rights, also had amendment articles. And same with European Conventions on Human Rights, Article 8. So they have an international law which promoting a privacy aspects. We also have a constitutional recognition, which is like EU Charter of Fundamental Rights. Many national constitutions explicitly protect the privacy. India has a right to privacy, and now we have a DPDPA. Then Brazil also have the constitutional amendment 115 for data privacy. Now, why it is matter for us as a practitioner? Because privacy right cannot be easily waived. Okay, we have a right-based approach. It means we look for the stronger protection than a contractual approach. And organization must justify processing, not just obtain assessment. Let's take example in the pizza case. Pizza need to be delivered. They need a house address. They need your phone number. They need a name. Now they're giving you valid justification. If you're not comfortable to share your complete address, you can give the building name and all that. So this is how we have to do. Without your consent, get the phone number and giving a call for marketing and all that. It is not a consent. Okay, so we need to see the balance, because privacy is not about absolute. It's a balance of public safety, national security. Let's take example. There is a guy who want to commit some crime, and he know privacy law is very strict. You're getting a point. So he know that, okay, no one going to track us. No, it's not like that. Whenever any scrutiny come from the national safety and all that, they won't take any chance. They won't take any risk there. Okay, the government can intercept your information. Government can trap your information, and they can see that. Okay, so 100% privacy is not possible to implement. Sometimes the freedom of expression press has to be considered. Privacy, it doesn't mean you will exploit someone else's privacy. Fundamental right, it doesn't mean you will exploit someone else's right. So we need to balance the approach of how you maintain the privacy with business. Let's take example of Uber. 10 years back, when you book Uber, you need to give a phone number, and if you cancel the cab, the driver give you literally, abuse you and all that, because you cancel the cab on a short time. Now what happened in the case of Uber, they have introduced a masking. So if you call, your number is masked. You have to give the defined location so that they can pick you from your respective location. That is where you need to balance the business and privacy. For the business reason, you have to give the address. For a business reason, you have to share the location. I'm not telling you that you have to share the floor number, but at least share the building details so that the driver can pick you from your location. This is why we say balancing a privacy with business. That's a very important part. Okay, so as I said, privacy is a set of information. Information is what? Data. So there is a systematic way we are collecting a data, and we have a phases of data, and according to that we need to protect the data. Data has a life cycle. Okay, So the first step is called data collection. So when we collect the data, we classify. Now from a data privacy point of view, let's say example, this is my company, which is called InfoSec Train. Let's take example. So in the InfoSec Train, what we did, we create one page, which is called as a, let's say example, it is a webinar page. It's a webinar page. Now in this webinar page, we have given we have asked for the name, definitely, because we can able to see. And we also asking for the email address to send an invite. Can I ask for the house address? No. Can I ask for the phone number? Yes. So here what happened is, when I design the page, I design with the aspect I need to collect the minimum data. So from a collection perspective, like I want to collect, I have to make sure I have a limited data to be collect or necessary for the business to be run, because more data I collect, more accountability comes to me. This is how you follow the data lifecycle process for protecting the data privacy. So here I'm collecting name, email ID, and according to that I will store. So once I collect, then I will decide to store. So now I have a database where I'm going to store this data. When I store this data, I need to encrypt the data. Encrypt means I need to convert data in a language no one can able to read that. So while you store, make sure you should secure. But when you store the data, you decide, can I store in a same country? Can I store in other country? So you're getting a point. When you're designing a web page, you're designing an application. Before you collect the data, these are the thoughts you have in your mind. Okay, so how do you going to store? For how long you going to store? How are you going to protect? Then you decide how to use the data. We can only use for the webinar purpose. We cannot use more than that. Then we decide how to share. Okay, we'll done as per the sharing is basically mean data in transit. Can we share outside of other country? Can we process as per the contract? When it's not required, we can archive. And when further not required, we can destroy, because if you don't destroy, you are accountable for everything. So this is how the data process works. So let's take example. So we have a collected during a hiring, stored in a HR system, used for payroll processing, shared with the tax authority, archive after employment at 7 years, and we destroy it securely, verify deletions. So that is the best practices has to be followed. Now, sometime what happened, we giving ROI for the data privacy. Okay, like, if you don't protect the data privacy, what is the concern? So if you notice here, GDPR violation, Meta, Facebook, 2023, the fine was 1.2 billion. Can you imagine? GDPR violation for Amazon was 746 million. Data breach, Equifax, 700 million settlement. And privacy violation for the British Airways is about 20 million. So tomorrow, if your management say we don't want this privacy practice, we don't need to follow this privacy program, just my suggestion is that just explain them with the history. Okay, so right now you want to save your $2,000. Why? Because $2,000 is a huge amount for them, but they forget that if they don't implement that, these can be the consequences of the loss they might need to face. In India, we had a 50 CR penalty. GDPR talking about 2% of total revenue or 4% something or 20 million euros. So these things you have to consider. So when you're presenting a use case to the management, why we need a data privacy program, it should be backed and supported by the numbers. So, even sometimes what happened beyond the fine, customer lose the trust. Okay, the stock price can dip. There is a legal fee, settlements, regulatory audits, reputation damage, and execute. And you'll be surprised to know that it has seen in the past, and it is a fact, not a random statement. 84% customer trust. The consumers say privacy practice affect the brand choice, and return on privacy investment for a mature program is great. 1.8x you will get. So if you're able to demonstrate your program, a privacy program in a great manner, it would be great. That's my suggestion. So when we're talking about this ROI, you need to look for all the fines and customer trust and everything, which is a good practice and good starting way to presenting a business case. Now, if you take example of foundation for all the privacy law, whether it's a GDPR, whether it is a HIPAA, we're going to cover in the further slide. We have a different type of laws. But there are some common principle which is followed in all these regulations. Okay, so and here I'm talking about starting of OECD. Okay, So when we're talking about OECD, it is a principle which is a framework which is introduced in 1980. So the question is, what is this 1980 OECD? Let's imagine. Okay, imagine many countries sitting together and saying, let's agree on rules so people information should be treated in a good manner, you know. So because what happened is, there is a country 1, there is a country 2, there is a country 3, and there is a country 4. Country 1 have their own choice. Country 2 has their own choice. Country 3 has their own choice. Country 4 has their own choice of protecting privacy. So each and every country has their own rule. Now what happened is they agree to create one rule, and that is where the group is called as a OECD. They made a very simple privacy rule so everyone play fair with the personal data. You getting a point? So OECD say people information is like their toys, take less, tell truth, keep safe, and all that. Okay, so that is what is OECD. So OECD introduced some principles which say every country has to follow. First is called collection limitation. It means, as I said in my previous diagram, collecting only which is required for business. So I'm collecting email address, I'm collecting phone number. Give the justification why you collecting. I'm collecting for a webinar purpose. So I'm talking about purpose. That's why sometime when you visit some websites and all that, they say, no, that we are collecting your email ID for this reason. Or when you give a customer care call, they say, no, we are recording this call for quality purpose. So they're giving a purpose. When they collect, they will secure the data. Any point of time you want to delete and all that, we're giving you complete freedom. Request for us to delete the data, we can delete the data. Maintaining accuracy, will not going to bias the data. Now we are used for the particular purpose, as I said, will not. So this is something, purpose specification is before we collect, but after we collect, we will not going to use for something else. As we said, we have collected for webinar, we will only use for webinar. We will not going to give you calls and all that. Then we are very transparent. We have a policies on the website which you can refer, which talk about how we follow data privacy practice. And as a company, when I'm collecting, we are accountable for that. So every modern privacy law is built on these principles, whether it's a GDPR, DPDPA. So remember one thing, this is like a fellow common privacy practice, which followed by everyone. Now the next important thing is called privacy by design. Actually, privacy by design is a framework. It's not a regulation. It is not a standard. You can say it's a best practices that you should adopt when you implementing a privacy practice in the organization. So Miss Anne has introduced this principle, and it has a 7 principles. Okay, the first principle, it's a proactive, not reactive. What is the meaning? So let's take an example. This is the website I'm building. Okay, this is the website I'm building. This website have a login page. Website has a name. It will ask for the name. It will ask for the email address. It will ask for the phone number. Hypothetical scenario, it asking for the name, it asking for the email address, it asking for phone number. Let's take example. Now, before I make this page live, okay, I will do all my review check to make sure I'm collecting the right data. Second is that when you installing any app in any phone, do you notice this app is going to access this call logs and all that until unless you don't give permission, it will not install. That's a live example of proactive, not reactive. It means after installing, they will not ask for the consent. Before you installing the app asking for your consent. It is same like, you know, when you're connecting on HTTP, it says certificate error. It will not load the page. That is called proactive, not reactive. So during a design of the product, we need to consider this principle and we need to build a code accordingly that first should be asked for the consent and then app need to be installed. Second is privacy as a default. Nowadays, suppose let's say example, you bought a phone. In phone, the third party app is default there. So it's not a privacy as a default. Camera is default on, camera accessible to all the applications. So it is not privacy as a default. Privacy as a default means everything is disabled. When you get a phone, then you manually enable the microphone, manually give access of a cam to the logs and all that. That is called privacy as a default. Then privacy is introduced in a design stage. When you're building a product, you're introducing privacy in the design stage instead of introducing in the later stage. Next is called as a full functionality. As I give an example in the case of Uber. In the case of Uber or in the case of any food aggregator app, okay, we have to share a phone number. Now I have to share the phone number also, but along with that, I need to maintain the privacy. I don't want someone to see my phone number, but I want to make sure he should call me also, because when he reach my location, I should know what is the location. So here is a question is how you maintain the privacy with business. Because if you maintain the privacy, you will lose the business. If you lose the business, you will not maintain the privacy. So I need to balance that. That is why when you call Uber, when you call Zomato, when you call any food aggregator app, they cannot see your phone number because information is masked. So by this way, they maintain the full functionality and maintain the privacy. And when they're collecting all this information, they maintain the end-to-end security for the data. And they're giving you complete visibility and transparency how they maintain. Is it clear? How they're connecting the information. So you can see in their website, it's mentioned about the policies. And it was created as per the user-centric. So these are the parameters you can use when you're building a product. I repeat again, when you're installing an app, before app install, it asks for a consent. That called as a privacy, not reactive. It should be proactive. Second is when you install any app, it disable everything. So you need to manually give access to everything. Third, privacy was in a design stage instead of adding in the later stage. Then privacy versus security. It means mask the information and give the calls also. Then whatever the data they collect, whenever they transfer, they maintain the end-to-end security and completing, maintaining a visibility and all that. Even GDPR Article 25 talk about you need to have a technical measure, the implementation cost, data minimization and document design. So when I'm going to cover the GDPR, you will get a better insight. So now what happened is, what are the type of documentation we maintain data privacy? And you need to be very familiar with all these things because it is quite used in all the data DPO practice and all that. The first document is called as a record of processing activity. See, as a company, how can we demonstrate we're maintaining data privacy? So you need to prove it, right? So there we have some accountability principles in practice, which is called as the documents that we maintain. The first document is called as a record of processing activity. In general term, it is also called ROPA. Now, what is ROPA? See, ROPA is a master list which showing what personal data you process, why you process, and how you process. It means you maintain the inventory of all the processing because it is a requirement under the Article 30 of GDPR. It's just a list of showing what personal data you process, why you process, and how you process. It is mandatory for you in the case of GDPR. Second document is called as a DPIA, Data Protection Impact Assessment. It is a documented risk analysis for processing that could harm the individual privacy. If you collect this data, what is the risk and what is the further impact on the human, societal or economical and all that. So DPIA is a process of doing an assessment. Okay. Third is DPA, Data Processing Agreement. It is a contract that legally bind the vendor to protect the person's data on your behalf. Let's say example, InfoSec Train. My company is dealing with a third party. So this is the InfoSec Train. And this is my cloud provider. So when you're moving data from InfoSec into cloud provider should also ensure and protect the data as per the InfoSec Train guidelines. So that come under the one contract. The contract is called as a DPIA, which is required as per the article of 28 GDPR. And now in GDPR, we also have a section is if you're transferring data outside of your EU region. So we need to look for the advocacy protection. And this is where it comes as a SCC. So let's say example, this is Europe and this is India. The company called TCS, the company called Accenture. TCS moving data to Accenture. Accenture is actually a support services for TCS. So TCS is a data controller, which is in EU, but now they're moving data outside of EU and they want the data to be processed from India. So we have to make sure they should have adequate protections, and that will be done as per the SCC, Standard Contractual Clause. So it's a legal safeguard that allows the personal data to be transferred across the border. Within the same company, it's called BCR, Binding Corporate Rule. So SCC, DPA is required in all the condition. Okay, whether you're doing a data transfer within the Europe, outside of Europe, contract is DPA, but SCC come into the picture of like a advocacy data protection guideline. It's more like an approval process. Then if any security breach happen, we need to maintain the breach response record. It evidence that can detect, respond and report data breach properly. And do you conducted data privacy training? We need to maintain the attendance for that. That is called a training record. So when auditor come for an accountability, you need to show all these informations. Now we have a different type of privacy law. In Europe, as I said, GDPR is there, e-privacy directive. Middle East has a PDPL, UAE have a PDPD, DFC, ADGM. North America has a CCPA, CDRA, PIPDA in Canada. Latin America have a LGPD, LFPDP, GDPR influence framework. Asia Pacific, we have a PDPA, PIPA, APPI, DPDPA, PIPL. Okay, so 150 countries have a privacy law, which is most influenced by GDPR principle, or you can say OECD principle. So as we talking about here, GDPR context, so I will share some of the requirement of GDPR. Okay. Now we're going to discuss about one of the first regulation called GDPR, because when you're preparing for CIPPE and other certifications, GDPR is very famous. When you're talking about GDPR, GDPR stands for General Data Protection Regulation, and it is a comprehensive EU law. Okay, it is actually a EU law. Now, when I say law, because I have seen a lot of people get confused with the word called law here. Now, what is law? Law is talk about a set with the high level goals. Okay, or you can say we have a law and we have a regulation. Law talk about what, and regulation talk about how. Okay, so law set the high level goals, while regulation provide a specific technical instruction on how to actually meet the goals. Let's example, driver must not exceed the safe speed on public road. That's a law. The speed limit is 101 or 65 mph, or there should be a sign. So that is called as a regulation. When we talking about law passed by the legislative body. If you take example, US we call Congress, in India we call Parliament. Regulations created by the executive agencies like FTC, SEC and all that. So yes, you can say regulations backed and supported by the law. So under the GDPR, okay, when I say law, so law is the foundation. Law is the foundation. Okay, so EU Parliament passes GDPR, it say people have a right to data privacy. And the difference between the US and EU culture is US having a more surveillance system, where the EU believe in the privacy fundamental. So people have a right to privacy is the law. Okay, now what they did, they introduced the regulations. Under the regulations, which is a manual, so GDPR contain 99 articles that specify exactly what company must do. Let's say example, you notify the data breach in 72 hours. That's an article. And then we have a advice. Then we have a third thing called advice. Advice mean independent body. Here we call it as a DPC, Data Protection Commission, which issue the guidance document. These are not a law, but they explain the best practice of how the small business can comply with the regulation. So if you violate a law, you're often dealing with the court and potential criminal charges. If you violate the regulation, you're typically dealing with agency that can issue the fines and revoke your business license. So that's something you need to understand. So law is a foundation, regulations are the articles, and guidance is called as a Data Protection Commission. So in this scenario, this regulation was applicable globally. It means any global company doing a business in EU, they need to be comply with GDPR. It is same like if any American coming to India, they need to be comply with RPI when you opening a bank account. Same like if Infosec Train doing a business tomorrow in EU, they need to be comply with GDPR. So it apply to the controller on processor in EU or processing EU resident data. Resident, why? Because it include the citizen and non-citizen. Let's say example, I'm an Indian, but I'm going to Germany. Okay, I'm an Indian, but I'm going to Germany, and in Germany I'm consuming some of the services. Okay, so GDPR will be applicable. So who enforce GDPR? It is enforced by National Data Protection Authority. And if you fail to comply with GDPR, what is the penalty? 20 million €, or 20 million euro, or 4% of global turnover. And there is one statement we use is GDPR territorial scope. It means a US company selling to European must comply with GDPR even with no EU presence. And the establishing concept is broad, even more salesperson in Europe can able to trigger. So that's a very important thing we have. So there are total, we have 11 chapters, and under which we have articles. So we have a terminologies that we use in GDPR, like data subject. Example, like it is you as a student who share his name, phone number, email, and exam details. Then a company, like example, my company is a tech company. They decided to collect your data, be giving a justification why we are collecting your data. So we collect your data, enrollment, classes, and support. Then we have a data processor. Okay, we are using a third party SaaS platform where we host the data. And then we have a regulatory, like in India, we have a data protection board. Okay. So we have a regulators. Okay. Then we have a privacy professional who ensure, DPO, CPO, privacy manager who enable the compliant to be used. And finally, we have a civil society like media or NGO, which questions the misuse of student data. So if you take a same example, this is you, like you're looking for some CIPPE or data privacy training, you reach out to InfoSec Train. Okay, so you are a data subject. You share your personal detail with us. InfoSec Train is a data controller. InfoSec Train using a CRM, which is a third-party CRM. So in that case, they are the data processor. Okay, so in InfoSec Train, there is a DPO who ensure this data to be protect and comply with the GDPR and process in CRM secure manner. So they are called as a privacy professionals. If not, then we have a regulatory agency in India who can enforce penalty on us. If they're not, then there will be a civil society who will question us. So DPO is required under the GDPR, and the role should be independent. It should not report to anyone. That's something you need to know that. Okay. So in GDPR Article 5, we have a 7 commandments. Example, like if as a company, I'm collecting data, I need to be comply with GDPR. So I have to be comply with the 7 principles. And if you notice, this principle is somehow correlated with the same OECD. The first is called fairness, lawfulness, fairness, transparency. It means we are collecting the data in a rightful manner. It means with your complete consent, I'm asking the data. We're giving you the complete justification why we collecting, and I'm telling you where we store. We collecting for the webinar purpose. We collecting only email address. Whatever the email you share, we'll maintain that. When it's not required, we'll destroy. And if we're retaining, we maintain the integrity and confidentiality of data. It means we protect from unauthorized modification. We're not going to alter that. And we as a company collecting, we maintain the complete accountability. So when as a company you want to comply with GDPR, you are complying with these principles. Is it clear? So you can see here, lawfulness means process legally, fairly, collect for specified, explicit, legitimate purpose, collect only what is necessary, keep the data accurate, keep only as long as necessary, ensure the security and demonstrate the compliance. So practical meaning is have a legal basis, no mission creep. If you don't need it, don't collect, regulator cleansing, retention schedules, technical organization measures, and documentation record. So before GDPR, comply with law. After GDPR, you prove you comply with the law by showing the documentations. Is it clear? That's something you need to understand. Okay, so there will be legal grounds, or we have a 6 lawful base under the GDPR that we need to follow. Okay, it means before using someone's data, you must have some good reason. Okay, and GDPR give a 6 allowed reason. No reason mean not allowed. Okay, so first reason is consent. So when I say consent is like, you asking permission. And I said yes. So I agree to receive emails and offer, which is used for marketing newsletter. I'm sure you have seen that. Now, like, when you visit some websites, they say this website is going to track your cookies and all that. Do you agree? So we're taking their consent before tracking your activity. Second is we as a company has dealing with other company, and we're transferring data. So it will be done as per the contract. Okay, so Amazon need your address to deliver your order. So no consent needed because delivery is impossible without data. So they're giving a contract. Then next is called legal obligation. Legal obligation mean law say you must do it. Like company keep employee salary record for the tax law. So choice doesn't matter. Law wins, right? Or it's for the national safety and security. Because the reason we are not collecting does not make sense. Because for national safety, we need to collect the data. Then hospital has to share the information. Okay, so because someone's life in danger, so hospital share the patient data in emergency, which is used really only for serious situation. You cannot say privacy. Public task mean government doing its job. The municipality using a citizen data for issuing an ID card. So it is only for public authority. Then we have a legitimate interest. Company has a fair reason, but it does not harm you, like using a CCTV camera for security and fraud preventions. But definitely we need to balance the business need and people privacy. So in summary, you can say, ask me, promise to deliver, law forces you, life at risk, government work, and more important, the business reason, but fair. Is it clear? So GDPR does not stop the data use. It stops data use without a reason. It say, okay, so make sure you should be comply and should be abide with these principles. It is very important when you transferring data. See, you are a data controller, okay, who is legally accountable for the data what he collect from data subject, and you decided to move data to the data processor. Okay, so this is called data processor. So in my case, the data processor is CRM, and there is a data center company where I host my server. Okay, so data subject, based on a trust on me, he shared the information with me. But now I move this data to data processor and all that. But tomorrow any security breach happen here, who's answerable to data subject? It is me. Who is answerable to regulatory authority? Me. So when you dealing with third party, you have to sign the contract, which is called DPA, data processing agreement, which we discussed previously, right? So agreement is very important. But question is, what need to be added in the contract? So we need to define the processing. What is the process of data we are processing? What will be done and why? What data will be covered? Okay, any audit we can do, and what kind of a security they have. So as a mandatory processor obligations, according to Article 28(3) section, they say process only on documented. It means whatever has been documented between the controller and processor, they will process. Make sure whatever we collect maintain the complete confidentiality and protect against unauthorized disclosure. Third, implement the security measures. And if you're dealing with sub-processor, in this case, I have an InfoSec train, and this is my data processor. And data processor also using a sub-processor. If you have, disclose and maintain the same level of control what I have with you, okay? And make sure you will assist with the data subject right. If any security breach happen, notify, delete when I required, and allow to contribute for audit. So practical tip is maintain the processor inventory, what processors you have. Use a standard DPA template. Okay, conduct the vendor assessment before you transfer the data, and go for the compliance assessment, which is a common practice that we follow. Now in GDPR, individuals are also getting empowered because there is an article called right of access, which is called Article 15, which get a copy of a data information about processing. Like the response time is 1 month in which you have to request. Then we have a second called right to re-certification. It means correct the inaccurate data. If you think your data is wrongly stored and all that, you can correct that. But if you want to delete the data, we have an article called right to forgotten. Then right to forgotten will be used in that case. Let's say example, you're receiving multiple marketing email and all that. So as per the right to erasure, you can request them to delete the data. Next is right to restrict, according to Article 18, which say limit the processing while dispute resolved, and response time will be the 1 month. Then we have a right to data portability, where you receive the data in machine readable format because you're using a different application. Then you have a right to object. It means you have to stop processing for direct marketing. Okay. And right to automate decisions. It means human review solely automate decisions. The response time is 1. So what is the concept is we call it as a data subject right request. Okay, so your request will be received. We verify the identity. We locate the data. We assess the exemptions if required. Like example, under some criteria, we cannot erase the data. Under some criteria, we cannot able to give you the direct access. So we need to look for the assumptions and respond and document. That's a common practice we follow. Now, one of the important thing we have is privacy notice. Now, what is privacy notice? Privacy notice, I don't know whether you notice when sometime you visit some websites. Okay, they have this website has a policy. How you collecting data, how you maintaining a data, how they're storing a data. So they have a dedicated policy. And as per GDPR, it is mandatory for a company to publish detail in such a way which is easily for the user to see. So privacy notice is a public document that explains to the user how the organization is going to handle your personal data. And it is often confused with privacy policy, but there's a difference. Policy is an internal document for the employee. Notice is an external document for a customer. Is it clear? Like under law like GDPR and CCPA, privacy notice just for information. Okay, answer 5 questions. Who are you? Okay, what are you taking? Okay, why are you taking, and how long as you keeping, and how can I make you to stop? It means we identify and contact detail for the company. We talk about the email address. We talk about the marketing. We talk about data and all that. Is it clear? That's something we will talk about. So if you see a privacy notice that say we may share your data with trusted partner without naming them or without purpose, it's a red flag. That's why, when you visit some website, they say, okay, we are collecting this data. We have a subcontractor who will store the data. That is called privacy notice. Okay. So controller identity, DPO contact, category of data, recipient, international transfer, this something should be there in the privacy notice. And because it come under the rights and everything, that something is part of a criteria. But make sure when you publish this notice, it should be in a plain language, be specific, okay, keep update, and make sure it should be visible or accessible in such a way which is easily someone can see. If it's not visible, then it is also a concern. That's something we have to look for. Now, if something goes wrong, we have a data breach response. In GDPR, you have to report the breach in 72 hours. Exactly. So if any security breach happen, as per the article 3334, you need to report the breach in 72 hours. That something is part of a requirement. And supervisory authority is your data protection authority. It is like a privacy police. They are independent public bodies appointed by the government to oversee, enforce data protection law. Like every EU country has its own supervisory authority, like CNIL in France, ICO in UK, CNIL. Let me note down here, CNIL. CNIL. So if any security breach happen, you have to report CNIL in France. Is it clear? So think of a supervisory authority as a playing three different roles. He is an educator. He providing guidance to companies. They have audit power. If company is suspect for data breach or someone file a complaint, then this CNIL will walk into the office, demand for access. So that is something is there. So data subject is when the high risk to the right to freedom without an undue delay, we report. So any security incident leading to unauthorized access to personal data, unauthorized disclosure, alteration of personal data, loss of personal data, destruction of personal data, that has to be report. That something is part of a practice. Okay, so now default GDPR says that you cannot move data outside of EU countries. So let's say example, we have a EU region. The company is in EU collecting data of EU subject. Okay, now we want to move data outside of EU. Okay, can we move? The question is that. So there is a one concept we called as a advocacy decision. This is the formal decisions by the European Commission stating that non-EU country providing a same level of protection like GDPR protection. So example, some countries are there in India, in the world who are in an approved list. So if that country 1, 2, 3 providing a same level of security what GDPR state expectation or their protection essential, they can do that. So if country has an advocacy decision, the data can be flow, they're just as easy. It does between the France and Germany, no extra paperwork or security measure required. Like UK, Canada, Japan, South Korea, New Zealand currently have advocacy status. What about, so these are called as a EU Commission deem. But if there is no advocacy decision, like, for data going to India or most of the US company, so they have to use an appropriate safeguard. And the most common is called as a SCC, standard contractual clause. So there is a pre-written non-negotiable contract template approved by the EU. So by signing them, the data receiver legally promised to follow the EU style privacy rule, like small European startup using a US-based email marketing tool. So they can do as per the SCC. It is just like a plug and play. But there's a company in Germany, in Europe, which is called, let's take example, ABC. Now they have a GCC, Global Capability Center in India. Same company, ABC in India. So they will do as per the BCR. How to remember? Two different companies, clause, contract between the same company. It is called as a rule. So these are internal privacy policy designed for a multinational corporation. So instead of signing 1,000 of individual SEC between every branch, the company create one massive rule book that all global office must follow. And these are very expensive and difficult to set up because they must be individual approved by the supervisory authority, and process can take years. It's same like global bank like HSBC or tech giant like Siemens moving employee data between the global branches. The third is called as a derogation art. Derogation is your emergency exit. If you don't have an advocacy decision, SSC or BCR, you can only transfer data under the specific exceptions called derogations, which is called Article 49. So these are the specific one-off situation, not for the regular business. For example, you tell the user exactly what the risks are. So they say yes anyway. or you need to send the data to the book a hotel in a foreign country for the user, or sharing a data to track the global health pandemics. So that is basically called as an exception. During COVID time, the Europe has to share the data, so that will become under the Article 49. So these are things we called as a advocacy data protection. So there is a one TI process we follow, which is called as a transfer impact assessment. So we map the transfer, we identify the transfer mechanism, we assess the destination country law, we implement the measure, and we document the thing. Between the US and EU, there is a special clause we have, which is called as a data privacy framework. Okay, for the US and Europe, it means the company, so there is a US and this is EU. Listen carefully. If any country in US, any company in US collecting EU data, then they will have to do as per the DPF. Okay, so as per data privacy framework, the US company can collect and process EU data. And the reason is that, US always having this principle about mass surveillance and all that, and EU was very clear, if you're collecting, make sure you should abide with the principle. And that is why they introduced this framework. Before that, they have a privacy shield and all that. So US company need to go through self-certification, obtain the DPF status, and then based on a European data privacy framework, the EU data can be moved to US. US also have their own dedicated regulation. So what happened is US before I discuss this slide, I want to discuss this slide. See, US initially has a state-wise privacy regulation, industry-wise privacy regulation. Okay, US has a industry-wise privacy regulation. What is the meaning? It means for the healthcare, they have a HIPAA, which protect the PHI, patient rights breach notification. For the finance, they have a GLBA. For a student records, they have a FERPA. For patients, parental consent for under 13, we have a COPPA. For credit report accuracy dispute, they have a FCRA. It means they have a industry sector privacy regulation. Like in India, we have a DPDP. It apply for all business. In Canada, we have a PIPDA, which applicable for all business. But US is not like that. So they have a privacy regulation sector wise for the healthcare, for a financial, for a education, for children, for credit. They actually have a difference. So let's say example of this is the hospital. This hospital, so there is a person come to the hospital. So hospital maintaining the patient records and all that. So in US, now if it's in EU, they will comply with GDPR. But this company is in US collecting US data and all that, they have to do as per the HIPAA. If it's a bank collecting a financial data, GLBA. If you are enrolling your kids in education programs and all that, that education company have to comply with FERPA. Then we have a COPPA, we have a FCRA. So you can do the full form check and all that. Okay. So 15 plus state with laws they have. A California. Now what happened is maintaining this will become a challenge. The California, Virginia, they also introduce a state with laws. And all 50 states have a different breach notification requirement. So what happened in 2016 or something, initially they have a draft about CCPA. So CCPA was a first kind of a regulation in US which cover all kind of business. It means if you're doing a business in California, your primary regulation, you have to comply with CCPA, California Consumer Privacy Act, which is amended by the CPRA. So CCPA came in Jan 2020 and it amended in 2023. It means it applied to business meeting a threshold processing California resident data. An approach is consumer right plus opt-out model. So if you do any kind of a thing, annual revenue, it is basically applicable for annual revenue more than 25 million, buy, sell, share up to $100 million consumer share data, and 50,000 plus revenue for selling a share data. So these are the thresholds they have. So key difference from GDPR, GDPR has a opt-in, which need legal base of proceeding. CCPA has a opt-out, which can process but must allow opt-out of sales and share. And they also have a key consumer right. So as I said, CCPA was a first kind of a privacy regulation in US, which is introduced to cover all kind of business. It means if you're doing any kind of business in California, your first regulation, they had to comply with CCPA. Now we have other regulations also, like China have a PIPL, which was introduced in 2021. Thanks to GDPR, to be frank, that give the benchmark that we should have a country-wise privacy regulation. Otherwise, all are following a OECD guideline. So in 2021, China introduced In Japan, they introduced in 2022, which is called APPI. Singapore introduced PDPA in 2021. India introduced DPDPA. So this year we got amended. And South Korea have a PIPA. Australian has a Privacy Act. So these are the specific regulations they had, which is a country-wise. So the next important part is the future of privacy and emerging regulations. So as you know, AI becoming more integrated into the daily life. But do you know one thing which is very common in AI is they need a data. And if you collect too much data, it breaches the privacy. That's why I say if you're looking for a safe AI, okay, safe AI. When I say safe AI mean take a right decision. But to take a right decision, they need more data. And when you go for the more data, it can basically breach the privacy. So it is always a balance of both. So AI becoming more and more integrated in daily life, as we said. And regulations are also catching up to ensure that people are not unfairly profiled or processed by the machine. So we have one act called UAI Act, which is a 2024. We talk about the comprehensive framework that categorize the AI system by risk level. We will have a separate topic on that. If you want a detailed video on that, please drop your comment. Then we have a GDPR Article 22, which provide the individual with the rights regarding a decision made solely on the automated processing. And US also passed the state AI bill, which say emerging patchwork for AI of different law across the various US state. And as you know, AI was also used for the marketing analytics and all that. So we have a children privacy, right? So protecting a younger user is major global priority, focusing on privacy by design for the app. So COPPA revised the 2.0 proposal, which update to the existing Children Online Privacy Protection Act. Then UK also introduced the age appropriate design of code or designing code, a standard for online service likely to be accessed by the children. And third is called DSA, which is a DSA protection specific safeguard with the Digital Service Act. You will be surprised to know that we also introduced a specific sector. So these laws target a specific industry, like we had a EU Data Act, a set of new rules who can access and use the data generated in the EU across all the economic sector. Then we have a Digital Service Act, which is called DSA, focus on platform accountability and content moderation. And third is called as a Digital Market Act, which target a gatekeepers platforms to ensure the fair competition and data portability. We also had a EU privacy regulations, which is a long awaited Lex specialist that will be complement the GDPR. It focus on cookies, electronic communication like WhatsApp, email, and online tracking. And it is expected to be more specific than GDPR regarding how the website track the user and manage the metadata. So these are specific stuffs we have, and you will have to see some trends in future, like AI governance is coming, children privacy is coming, biometrics, which is a state level bans. We have a data localizations, employee monitorings, and neuro rights, which is protecting a mental brain data and all that. So according to that, they need to balance the privacy practices. Now the question is, how can we protect the privacy? How can we protect the entire process? And this is where we introduce a privacy program. Like the way we have an information security program, same like we have a privacy program. So information security program is what? It talk about the controls. What information security controls we required, right? Same like we need a ROPA, we need this document, we need that document. So we need one program which include all this data. You're getting a point? So there should be one program which include all these particular data. Okay, so we have to look from that perspective. Is it clear? So when we talking about that program is called Privacy Program Management, and there is a dedicated certification who cover about that, which is called CIPM from IPP. Now, when we talking about the program, okay, the first part of the program, we talk about the governance, leadership. We need a policies, we need an incident response, we need risk management, we need a vendor management, we need a training and awareness program. So that something is part of a function. I repeat again, when we're talking about the governance leadership, it means we need the right people to track all the activities and all that. Then we need to write policies, how we're doing a risk management of privacy practices, if any security breach happen in data privacy, how to respond to the incident. If we onboarding any vendor, what are the data privacy control we have to look for? What is the training and awareness we need to have from data privacy point of view? So all those things are covered in this particular program. Is it clear? That's something we have. Now, another important element, we talk about how we build the program. That's a question. So first step is discover, understand your current state, where we are. Okay, where we are and what we need to achieve. That is called as a gap assessment. Then the second step is you design your program structure. Okay, then third is called as a implement the program, which include the policy, process and technology. Then you will operate that program on a regular basis. Whatever the gap you identify, you will monitor. And according to that, you will improve the entire functions. You get my point? So this is basically called as a data privacy program lifecycle. So it's very important that you should know this privacy program, because the way we have a ISMS program, which talk about the process, policies and everything, same like we have a data privacy program. And as I said, it is a structured framework designed to protect the personal information and ensure the legal compliance and build the trust. Is it clear? Now, if I go back here, you can see governance and leadership, right? So right people, okay, policies, we need a privacy policies. When I'm doing a risk assessment, I will consider the privacy aspect. Any security breach happen, how we respond to the breach, we need a privacy incident response. Like in GDPR, we have to report the breach in 72 hours. When we onboarding a vendor who going to handle my privacy data, privacy control should be there for vendor management, then training and awareness. And as I said, we start with assessment. Okay, document what data you have, where is the state and all that, because until unless you don't know what you have, you cannot able to protect the data. Until unless you don't know what data you have, you can be able to implement the control. Then you design the program, which include the controls and all that. Then you implement, then you sustain, then you monitor and you improve. Is it clear? So summary is that appoint the DPO. Let me write down here. The first is basically appoint the DPO. That is part of a governance and all that. Okay, need an approval for everything. Then you need to have a policy and standards. Okay, doing a risk management. When it comes to vendor management, we have to ensure the third party protect your data as well as, and you need to have a proper playbook that need to be followed, and we follow this complete life cycle. Now, what is a governance in the data privacy? So we have a board executive. He is the one who oversight, set the strategy, set the risk appetite, approve the budget. Then we have a privacy leadership. As you said, DPO should report as high as possible in the organization, because if he report to CIO, what happens? CIO is believe in more data accessibility, and then if his manager is CIO, then DPO will think twice before presenting any fact. That's why we say he should report as high as possible in the organization, so he can able to provide his independent viewpoint. So we have a CPO, we have a DPO who set the program direction, strategy, policies, regulatory engagement. Then they have a privacy team who does the day-to-day operations. That's something part of a requirement. And then we had a privacy champion who advocate data privacies everywhere. Okay, he is the one who educate about privacy everywhere. And then we have employees who will actually follow. So this is actually a common practice that we follow. Is it clear? So let me repeat again, so you get a better insight. We have a board executives. They are the one who oversight and set the expectation. They are the one who approve the policy. Privacy leadership, CPO, DPO, they are the one who create a privacy policy, privacy program, everything. Then we have a privacy team who does the day-to-day program executions. If you are into product company, then we need to introduce privacy in the technologies. If you're into consulting services, you need to introduce privacy in the process. So it's a privacy team who ensure that. Convey the privacy policies, educate the employee about the policies, motivate people on the privacy policies and all that, part of a privacy champions. Like we have a security champions who promote the security culture, provide the security awareness session. Same like we have a privacy champion who provide the privacy awareness programs. And finally, we have employees who actually follow this process. Okay, now question is how we can implement this model. So one is called centralized model. Okay. The privacy, we have a centralized model. we have a single privacy team who serve the entire organization. Okay, then we have a federated, where the privacy team embedded in the business unit. Okay, and third is called as a hybrid, which is like a core central team, embedded champions, and best for balance the consistency and local flexibility. And let me give an example so you get a visibility. Let's say example, the company is aspirants. The company is aspirant. Okay, we have a aspirant company. Okay, they have one privacy team which basically support all the business. So that is called as a centralized. Everything should be approved from there. Now, aspirant have a one wing which is a technology company. One wing is service. One is in product. So we have a dedicated privacy for them. That is called as a federated. Okay. Then the third is, because the reason is that if one privacy person will be involved in all the department, he get confused. And it can be like a single point of failure. That's why we have a dedicated business unit, have a privacy team. You have seen in this big four and all that, right? When business owner bring the business, partner bring the business, we have a dedicated privacy officer for a dedicated region. And third is basically called hybrid. We have a core central team. Then they have a privacy team which is operate for every department, just to manage the flexibility, functionality and all that. So that's something we can look for. Actually, hybrid is the most probably which is commonly used everywhere. And we also create one committee which is called as a privacy council committee. Okay, it is a cross-functional decision-making body, include the legal, IT, ops, because sometimes for meet the regulatory or providing a independent viewpoint from all the perspective, we need to have this committee to execute the functions. So policy framework, exactly. So when you're implementing a privacy in the organization, it should be follow the top-down approach. So first we need a policy, because any kind of an activity you want to introduce, because simple is we have strategy, then we have a policy, and then we have a program. Always remember, this is the hierarchy. Strategy is a high level which talk about what we need in a year. Policy talk about what is required to accomplish that, and program is actually the documents, controls and everything that we do. So approval of policy mean the management is interested for those initiatives. So let's say example, we want a discipline in the company. We want discipline in the house. So we create a policy. So, everyone should come to the office by 9. So we introduce a policy for that because it's part of a strategy. If people are disciplined, then only they can able to achieve the goal. To maintain the discipline, they introduce a policy, and policy approved by the management. Policy is like a law of the company. Okay. So when I say privacy policy, it's a top level promise approved by the leadership, what we believe and what we committed. Then we have a standard, mandatory rules and technical requirement, what must be followed. That something is part of a requirement. Then we have a procedure, step by step, how actually need to be done. And the last is basically called as a guideline, good to have, not mandatory, but good to have. Okay, so that something is part of a requirement. So I will give you an example of that. Okay, let's say example, let me first give you a security example. Every system must be protected with the password. Okay, that is a policy. Password must be 8 character. That is a standard. Go to start setting, create a password. That is a procedure. Good to have, but not mandatory. Like do not share the password with others. That's a guideline. Okay. Now let me give you privacy example. We collect personal data lawfully, use it only for stated purpose, respect the user rights under the applicable law. It's a statement come from the management. That is called as a policy. This is applicable for the Aspirant India Limited. Now, we have a collect only minimum personal data. Sensitive data must be encrypted. Personal data access required. Business justification, retention period must be defined. That is called as a standard. What must be followed to honor the privacy policy. Okay. If someone has any request to delete the data, go to start, user raise requests, confirm your identity, we can delete. So this is how the privacy works actually. Avoid copying personal data, mask personal data, prefer anonymized data for testing. It is called as a guideline. So privacy policy is something like our public promise. Privacy standard is a mandatory privacy rule to follow the policy. How privacy request, how the privacy procedures, policies has to be followed, that is a procedure. And privacy habit is called as a guideline. And we have a different type of privacy policy. Like we have a data privacy policy, retention policy, classification policy, acceptable use policy, third party data policy, cross-border data transfer, breach response data subject. So when you're dealing with data privacy practices, when you're complying with GDPR, these are the common need to be followed. Now, data security, data privacy, when you're talking about comply, it starts with data inventory, because until unless we don't know what we have, how are you going to comply? So data mapping is a foundation by which you're preparing a company to be comply for any regulation. You can see my GDPR video. I have explained this in more detail. And even in the information security, until unless we don't know what we have, we're not able to protect the data. So data inventory is very important. So whenever you join any organization and they say we need to prepare a company to be comply with regulation, the first step is you need to know what data you have. And this is off the topic I want to discuss with you. So when we're talking about data, data is actually three type in the company. One is called as a business data, one is called as a regulatory data, and one is called operational data. 99.5% regulatory data is your privacy data. Business data is your trade secrets. Operation data is the logs. Is it clear? So whenever you join any organizations and all that, remember this, we only have a 3 type of data. So in this case, what happened is, what actually we did is, we need to capture what we have, because as I said, you cannot protect what you don't know exists. So data inventory is the foundation of privacy program. So what to capture? What percent data do we have? Where does it come from? Where do process? Legal justification, whose data it is, who receive. It is same like income tax. Suppose tomorrow any income tax happen, audit happen, and if you don't have a justification how you got the money, then you go on. Same happen here. If you have a data, you need to have a justification how you collect. Second is where it is stored. Does it have a cross-border flow? How long you're going to keep? What application process you're going to use? What is the protection mechanism? So this is something we have to do. So we collect this by a different way, by survey, by interview, by script, or by hybrid. Is it clear? Survey is a direct from data owner, but time consuming. GDPR, if you check my video, I've explained this entire thing in more detail. Interview, deep understanding, automate discovery with the help of scripts and all that, but sometimes miss the false positive, and combination we can use. And when you collect, you maintain one document as per GDPR called ROPA, Recorder Processing Activity, which require document inventory of your data map feeds in the ROPA. That something is part of a requirement. Now, next is called as a assessing a privacy risk, DPI. Why we collecting, how we collecting, if we collect and if we misuse, what is the impact? So we do the PIA, privacy impact assessment. Actually, PIA answer one question is why we are collecting, because if you collecting, you should have a justification. So PIA talk about while collecting what is the impact on the data. So that is why PIA is very important, privacy impact assessment. So we need to understand what is the impact if we collect the data. Okay, what is the impact? We collect the data. It's a systematic process used to identify, evaluate how the project, system, technology will affect the privacy of an individual. So you can say it is like a privacy stress test, and PIA answer the question of why we collecting. So as I said, I'm building a webinar page. I'm asking to collect the name. I'm asking to collect the email address. I'm asking to collect the house address. Why you want to collect the house address? If you collect, what is the impact? So this is what PIA. So it's more like a privacy stress test, which is performed before we launch something new, before we develop something new. So you can trigger the PIA whenever the project involves significant change or you introducing something new. Let's say example, tomorrow company introducing biometric. What if biometric hacked? What if biometric release the data? That's a PIA we're doing. Is it clear? So we identify the need, describe the data flow, identify the risk, define the solutions. Is it clear? So PIA is a generic term. Same in GDPR is called as a DPIA, which is required as per Article 35, and it is used for the high risk processing. So let's say example, there's a company want to add GPS for live tracking. So PIA findings say that they're keeping the exact GPS history forever, for it's a high risk. Okay, so here whenever anything comes, we do PIA. Okay, so privacy risk category, comply to non-compliance, GDPR violation is there, impact on the reputation, financial, operational, and individual harm. So that's why we do DPIA, which is an exclusive term used in GDPR, a systematic way to check the assessment and see the impact. Is it clear? So the first step in the DPIA is describe the processing. Okay, assess the necessity, proportionality, identify risk, mitigate the risk, document the review, and consult the DPA. That something is a common practice we have to be follow. There is a dedicated video I made on GDPR in which I cover all those things. Here the privacy risk categorized into 5 categories. As I said, if you fail to protect that, we have a non-compliance, that's a primary. You will lose the trust. You have to pay the penalty, so financial loss is there. Impact on the operation next, and it will individually harm the things. One more important thing, when you outsourcing a data third party, you need to assess the vendor before you onboard them. There also you have to check, do they have a privacy controls? So we do the vendor management from privacy practice, like, identify what vendors we have, do the assessment, do they have a necessary controls, sign the contract we just discussed, data processing agreement we have, then monitor, review, and exit. Okay, so when you assessing any vendor from data privacy point of view, because by end of the day, if this is the data subject and this is the bank, and bank has decided to move services to third party vendor here, if vendor do something wrong, it is a bank who answerable. So make sure you assess the vendor properly. Is it clear? So you have to check the legal aspects. Okay, you have to see the security aspects. You also need to check, is this vendor is outsourcing to someone else? So we look for the sub processors. What is the location? Do they have a breach history? Exit. Because once you onboard and once you have a data, then you are ultimately accountable. So you're doing this due diligence before you onboard them, just to prevent the impact. That is why we also categorize the vendor into multiple categories. Is it a critical vendor? It is a high vendor. It is a medium vendor. He is a low vendor. Critical mean that vendor is critical because he handling my large volume, extensive data. Significant processing important functions. Moderator process. So according to that also you have to customize your questionnaires. Is it clear? That something is a practice we have to follow. Now it's time to build the privacy culture. Privacy culture is all about, not misusing the PI data. You should abide with the principles, because no matter what tools you have, but if you don't have a strong culture, which is driven by the people, no technology can offer the adequate number of security. That's why we try to promote as good as culture. And the most important success of a good culture is senior management support, sharing awareness and all that. So we have a different type of awareness. Awareness is something modify the behavior of people. Training is something modify the skill. Let's say example, I am a GRC professional and I want to improve my DPO skills. So I will attend the training program which upgrade my skill set to the DPO, so I can able to perform a DPO activity. Awareness was all about modifying the behavior. I was in the impression I can share this customer data with anyone. But in the awareness session I got I should not. So awareness is applicable for all the audience. Frequency, annual or onboarding. Sometimes we have a role-based training according to high risk role. We provide the educate sessions. Sometimes we have a specialized training, like we educate privacy champion how he can conduct the sessions. We have an exclusive session for developers because they're building an apps which comply with the privacy. Then sometimes we need to have a management awareness about new regulations and all that, executive briefing, or some new changes are there, just in reminder where you receive an email and all that. And the question is, how can we conduct a good effective awareness training? What is a requirement of a good awareness training? It should be relevant to the audience roles. It should be practical, short, should be interactive. You should have a last MCQ by which you can test the knowledge and document the accountability. And sometimes what happened, we can schedule the newsletters and all that. We used to have a awareness campaign ideas like Privacy Week, poster signage, privacy tips, and privacy champion who basically go to the floor and educate about the privacy. Now, how can we measure, do we follow the privacy practice adequately? So we have a privacy metrics framework, because what you implemented, if you cannot able to measure, how can you demonstrate your presence in the company? How can you demonstrate your practice to the organization or to the senior management that we are implementing educate privacy management program? So we have divided the metrics into 5 categories: compliance, operational, risk, maturity, and business. So compliance, like, DPI are completed, training completion rate, policy exception. So we have a dedicated metrics for that. If any user is requesting to remove his data, then DSR response time, how fast you able to reply, what is the resolution time backlog, we have a metrics for that. Open finding high risk vendors, incident counts, number of percentage, how many we have. What is the maturity? How effective is that? Level 1, level 2, level 3, because of the privacy, what is the delay, customer complaints that we have. So KPIs are the parameters by which you can able to check the effectiveness. Like this is sample, okay? So DSR response rate is 100%, training completion is 95%, high risk DPI complete before launch was 100%, vendor assessment so this reporting provide the visibility. Now reporting can be given to the board on a quarterly basis, because every month we cannot go. To the executives, we give the program health key metrics issue monthly. To the privacy team, we give the operational metrics workload, and business unit specific metrics we have. Now the next is called as a privacy engineering. Now what is privacy engineering? And don't be surprised, this is something you will see soon in the industry. It's already started, but it's very important for us to understand. Privacy engineering means application of engineering principles and technical solution to protect the personal data, enable the privacy. Like we already discussed about privacy by design. It is a framework we adopt when you're building a solution. Let's say example, you understood the requirement of a customer, and the customer is going to customer want to build the application, and that application is going to collect a lot of PI information. So when you're building this application, when you're developing application from a design stage, you want to introduce a privacy practice. So privacy engineering mean building technology in a way, building application in a way that protect the people data by default, not fixing later. So you can say privacy is coded into the system instead of adding on a later stage. One example is I already given you about, from the day one, the app is designed to collect only required data. We only get to know because during a design stage of building application, we were very clear about how we collecting data. You're getting a point. So privacy by design, we are using from that perspective. Then we have a privacy engineering technologies. Now privacy engineering technologies mean what is the tool and technique we are using to protect the data. Like, let's say example, we are masking the information. That's why when you call today Uber and all that, your number is masked. The destination person cannot see your real number because of privacy enhanced technology, which allow the business to use without exposing your real identities. Tokenization. Is it clear? Anonymize the data. So that is called PET, which we adopt as a form of solution in maintaining a privacy. Is it clear? Then we have a data security. Whatever data we collecting, we maintaining a proper confidentiality integrity so that we can able to protect data from unauthorized access. Then we have a identity management. Example, we have a strong login, role-based access. No one can see data. So it's ensure only the right people see the right data. Collect with limited parameters, store only required, retain once it is completed, and delete once the work is over. So these are some of the practices we have that we follow when you technologies meet the privacy requirement. That's why called application of engineering principle and technical solution to protect the personal data. Now we have some other privacy engineering principle like data minimization by design. As we said, we collect only relevant data. Consent management system should be there, which talk about the tracking and everything. So as I said, data minimization, we design a system to collect only what is necessary. So it's a principle we adopt. So how we follow in practice, like, we giving them mandatory field and optional field, like no passport, no Aadhaar unless legally required, or backend we reject the extra data if front end send it. So if data is not collected, it cannot be leaked, right? Second, we have a purpose specification. Purpose is to enforce by system logic, not only policy exists, like separate database, API check, data need to be tagged, classified. Then consent management, most important backbone. It means user consent is recorded. When you click on yes, I agree, so that has to be recorded, that has to be enforced, that has to be auditable. So in practice, consent stored in timestamp. We system check the consent before processing, and we withdraw the consent automatically block processing. So that's something we have. Then we have access control enforcement, like only authorized people can see the data, like with the help of RBAC, just-in-time access based on role, reason, time we can use. And we have a dedicated slide for that. Then encrypt the data, convert data into different format. Pseudonymization is a requirement of GDPR. Best example of pseudonymization is when any candidate go to the hospital. So his name information database, your name is replaced with a patient ID. Your name is replaced with patient ID and rest of the information remains same. So in the entire hospital, we don't call you by the name, we call you by the patient ID. That concept is called pseudonymization, where we're replacing the identifier with something else. We also have a retention automation. The data should delete itself when no longer is needed. Like we should have auto deletion jobs, legal hold exceptions, and all that. Audit logins. Every access to personal data should be traceable. Who access that, when they access, why they access. And finally, we have a privacy preserving analytics, which is today we are using in data analytics. It means extract the business insight without exposing an individual. Example, we are using, we noising the data, learn from data, but we're hiding the PI informations. So instead of collecting my name pub, they will check my address and they will check my shopping habits and all that. So it is not linked with pub. So they will hide the information, which is called privacy preserving analytics. So we have a tools here. Like for minimization, we use a technology like data masking sampling to reduce the data footprint. For pseudonymization, we use tokenization hashing without identification. Anonymizations, we use a differential privacy where we are adding some noise and all that use case. Encryption, we use end-to-end homomorphic. Homomorphic is a new concept. It means you process the data in encrypted state itself. See, normally what say data in use and data at rest. So data in transit and data at rest, we can support the encryption. But what if I want to use the data? So there is a key which is inside the system only. So data will go inside the key. Inside the system, key will read the data, decrypt the data and process and send back in an encrypted state. It means we can able to process data in an encrypted state. That is called homomorphic. This is used in data in use stage. So when we say pseudonymization and anonymization, pseudonymization can be re-identified. As I said, we're only replacing a name with patient ID, rest of the information same, but anonymization cannot be re-identified. In GDPR, we are using pseudo and anonymization is not using pseudo. So for public data set, we have, but when you're adding mathematical noise for data analytics, data mining and all that, which is called as a differential privacy, which is a very common concept used in AI/ML. When we want to train data for AI/ML, we remove all the identifier, we add some random value and make the data format change so that model cannot reveal the PI information. So that concept is called as a differential privacy. Now, as I said, we also need to adopt the engineering principle when you collect, store, process, share, and retention. We already covered in the past, like, we're building an application. Let's take an example, like customer want to open the account. So we only required to capture the KYC for banking purpose. So we collect only for KYC. Now, when we collect the KYC, we store in an encrypted manner. We process in a secure manner, all the verifications, everything has been controlled properly. When we're sharing with other systems and all that, we share in a secure manner, transfer using encrypted channel and all that. And finally, we have a retention. So here you can see the example collection, data minimization is a control like form validations, optionals and all that. While storing a data encryption at rest. So we use AES 256, transparent data encryption, field level encryption we are using. Field level is used for the database. So in database, we can encrypt some of the field. During a processing, enforcement should be there. So we need to have an agreement and policy engine. While sharing a data, we can use TLS 1.3 and all that. When you're deleting a data, you should have a proof of deletion. The biggest challenge for us to deal with the legacy system. That something is a important challenge we have. Now, as I said, access control play a very important role in the data privacy. And access control we can achieve with the help of IAM. So in IAM stand for Identity Access Management. See, in IAM we have three things. One is called identification. Second is called as authentication. And third is called as authorization. Let's say example, I'm going to airport and say, hey, my name is Prab. So they will check my name in the list. That is called identification. Then I will show my Aadhaar card, passport to prove I am the same person who claimed to be. That is called as authentication. The person who claimed to be the same or not. Then they give me a particular seat number. That is called authorization. So authentication, verify who is accessing. Authorization, determine what they access. And with the help of policy, we can do. But more important part is we do the regular audit to track their activities. If we issue, we give provision. If we want to delete, we deprovision. So we use different kind of access control model. The first is called as a role based. Now let's take an example of Indian hospital systems. Indian hospital system. Now there is a doctor who can view a patient medical records, who can view billing, but staff cannot do that. Okay. So here based on a role of doctor, not based on nurse, not nurse, not staff, only doctor as a role can able to see the medical records. That is called RBAC. So a role based access has been given. Then now we introduce a new concept called attribute-based access control, where the doctor can access record only during a duty hours, only for assigned patients. Or let's take an example of any doctor. When you log into the application, this is the application. So we check the doctor profile. Okay, doctor profile is he's a gyno, or his attributes is neurosurgeon. So he can see only records which is tagged as a neuro records. So when doctor log in, we see his profile. Instead of seeing a doctor username, we'll see the profile. Profile is neuro. So he can see all the objects with tag as a neuro. Okay, and he can access only during time of office hours. So that is called attribute. And second example of attribute based access control you have seen in Netflix or Amazon Hotspot and all that. So when you log into Amazon Prime or Netflix, they check your profile, like person is from India, interest of is English. So he will see only the list of movies which is part of that category, because you are the subject and web series are the object. So objects also tag with the attribute, subject is also tagged with the attribute. So based on the attribute we give access. Now third is called as a reback, relational base. So nurse can access the record only if assigned to the patient care team. So access depending upon the relationship, because during an enrollment time we have updated the nurse number. So if the nurse number match, then only she can access. And last is we give access for the particular time. After that we'll revoke. That is called zero trust. So we also add some necessary practice like least privilege. Least privilege assigned to the user. Like this is the minimum thing you can do. Okay, need to know is assigned to the object. The best example is I am sharing a Google Doc. So when I share with you, one is that you click on that access, and second is you click on the access, I will receive a request. Like this person has request for access. Until unless I don't approve, you can't access the thing. So that is called need to know. That's called need to know assigned to the object. Least privilege assigned to a subject, which is you. Separation duty mean one person will not perform end-to-end all the activity. Because if you one person do all, it can commit a fraud. So separation duty ensure one person will not perform end-to-end duty. We give the access based on a particular time. We also use one follow-up thing called break glass procedure. It's a very interesting stuff. Break glass mean in the emergency access logs, we will give the access. Is it clear? Without, we'll review later, but right now we give access. And on regular basis, we will review. Okay, so next topic is called as a privacy threat modeling. When we talk about information security, in information security, we talk about a lot of threat modeling like Stride, Pasta. Now, what is threat modeling is all about scenario analysis of the threat that you identify during a design stage. Let's say example, having a meeting with a customer, and so this is me working for the company who build product, and this is a customer. The customer has reached out to me, sir, and told me, Prab, I want to build an application. That application is going to collect lot of PI information. This application is now going to be hosted in Europe. Fine. So me, now imagine I am a DPO sitting with the consultant and project manager who understanding requirements. So DPO will interpret all the requirement what customer want. Once we have a meeting with the customer, we'll sat internally and we're going to design the entire application on a paper. Like, okay, this is how the website look like. It will ask for the username. It will ask for the password, and after that it will redirect to there. Now we need to ask ourselves, okay, when users submit the information and that information, okay, the app, whatever is there, whatever the information we feed in the app, does this app link to your workout? So let's say example, this application that we're building, it's called as a Indian fitness app, which used to track the steps, sleep and location. Okay, so it's a app they want to build, or Europe training app, which is going to track your sleeps, location, steps and all that. So first we need to ask ourselves, is this app link your workout data plus location, sleep history to build a full profile of you? Even without your name, email plus device ID can identify you as a specific person. Third, Logs actually prove you perform certain activity, leaving no way to deny usage later. So do you want non-repudiation? It means tomorrow you cannot deny what you did. Fourth, detectability. Someone can detect that you are using the fitness app just by network traffic or ads. Disclosure, health data leak to advertiser. Unawareness, user does not realize the location health data are being shared. And last is basically called as a non-compliance. So here what happened is you are introducing this Linden framework as a question. Okay. And do one thread at a time. You need to ask question first. Don't explain first. Ask question. Can I link today order with the last month order? Can I build a profile of a food habit? Then if it's a answer, it means linkability is there, which we don't want. Okay. Second is identifiability. Identifiability, if I remove the name, can phone and address still identify the person? If yes, it's a risk. So we need to remove that. Is the logs that prove the user order alcohol or late night food is there? Yes. So non-repudiation risk is there because he cannot able to deny later. We don't need to capture these logs. Detectability, detect the existence of the data. Can ISP ads or Wi-Fi logs detect this user use this app? Yes, detectability is there. Then disclosure, we're talking about what if order history goes to advertiser leak? Yes, it is possible. So it's a concern. We need to introduce encryption. Without user knowledge, things are enabling and all that. Unnecessary tracking locations and all that. It's not a good thing. So we identifying possible threats during a design stage of building application. So when you talking about this is basically called as a Linden framework, which we're using for data privacy. So ultimate goal of introducing all this element is that, to identify the possible threat during a design stage. Is it clear? Now the next thing is called as a cookies. Cookies is another important topic we have. So when user open a website, multiple tracking technologies start working silently actually. That's why when you visit any website, you see some ads related to that. When you search something in Google, next day you see more ads because of cookies. Cookies are the way we identify users. So let's say example, this is a user 1, this is the user 2, this is the website we have. So when user connect with the website asks for the username password, you provide the username password, against that he get a cookies. Now based on cookies only you can able to track. So cookies, because HTTP is a stateless protocol, it doesn't maintain the state. So only by cookies only we can able to track which user sending a request. That's why we raise a cookies. Now we have a different type of cookies. So first party cookies mean the website remember your login, cart, language. Why acceptable? Because user expect their relationship. But privacy angle usually okay because it is an essential cookie for the authentication. So how it work? When you visit a site, which control the relationship expected. Okay, I'm the repeated user. Then we have a third party cookie. Third party cookies like ads, analytics company track your across the website. Example, you search shoes once and ad follow you everywhere. This is the privacy problem because cross-site tracking without clear consent, it's a concern. That's why reason is when you visit nowadays a website, it asks now like this website is tracking your activities and all that. That's the thing. Next is called as a fingerprinting. Fingerprinting is like website identify you using browser, device, font, screen size. They know okay you are using Google Chrome. So reality is even if you block this cookie, you can still be tracked. Is that a privacy problem? Yes. Hidden identification, very hard for the user to control. Because when you visit a website, right, the website maintain the logs, which browser you are using, which operating system using, everything they can see that. So that technology is fingerprinting. Then we have a pixel beacon. Now pixel beacon is an invisible 1:1 image which send data when page or email is load. So when you refresh the page and all that, that image have this pixel. So normally, when you're receiving this marketing mails and all that, you click on any of the things. So, or sometimes you open the mail, automatically they receive a script details that this person has opened this mail on this time. So when you click on the mail, when you open the mail, automatically they send the cookies. It is also privacy problem because it track happen without user noticing. Then we have a local storage. Data stored in a browser does not expire like cookies. So example is user ID stored permanently. Does it have a privacy problem? Long-term tracking without visibility, yes. So why cookie law or consent rule is exist? Because tracking is invisible, law says, but take a consent for the non-essential tracking. That's a very important part. You need to explain what is track and why, and you have to give the really a user choice. That's why when you're visiting nowadays a website, it say this application is going to access your cookies tracker cookies, and also you have to take a consent before it load the page. So these things are basically required. Now when you're dealing with cookie consent best practices, separate consent by purpose. Make sure you should give a proper acknowledgement for acceptance and rejections. There should be a pre-check box which give them authority to select what they have to select, and it should not be have a complex interface. It should be having an easy withdrawal mechanism, and granular option definitely should be there. So it should not be mixed with other cookies. Make rejection difficult. Don't do that. Keep the interface as simple as possible. Don't assume that consent has been taken. We need to take it all or nothing. So as we said, cookies categories, we have strictly non-necessary, so no consent needed. Functional cookies basically remove preference. Next time you visit a website, you will get that customized version. Sometimes we are using cookies for analytic reason and advertising reason. So wherever the analytics are there, where we're tracking your activities, or whenever the advertisement is involved, make sure we should take the consent. That's a very common practice we have to follow. Now, we have some challenges when we're using AI, because the AI and ML demands data, and if you don't feed them a right amount of data, they might take biased decisions. So sometime in AI, so this is the AI we have, the most important thing in the AI is the model. So you can say model is like a brain. You have to train the model. So according to that, whatever the input we get, based on that model can reply. So we have to train the model with the right data. It is same like that. Until unless you don't taste the food, you cannot judge the food. So without tasting the food, you start judging a new food. Does not make sense. Same like AI, whenever he answer it is basically have a model. Model is a brain based on which it answer. So model required the right amount of data to be trained on that. So one concern is that when it comes to training data, use personally trained model. So make sure you should mask the information. Like example, like your name is Ravi, my name is Prab. So they will replace this with some ID. Rest of the information remains same, because you staying in Delhi, I'm staying in Delhi. Delhi is a big state. So then we can use, so training data we are using for the train the model. Sometimes the AI make decision affecting individuals. Sometimes it's having a biased decision when they don't get the right set of information. Third is profiling. So we have to build the profile from behavior. When you're visiting a Netflix and all that, based on your login, they will experience and they will provide you the right window, right? Sometimes there will be unfair outcomes. Yeah, and the AI using a model which is a black box, we don't know how they compute and all that. And AI want more data, and privacy say limited data. So there is always a challenge to be managed and all that. So GDPR Article 22 already said one thing about automated decision making. It means individual have a right not to subject solely automated decision. That's why nowadays when you're visiting a websites and all that, they're asking you consent. So make sure individual have the right not to the subject to solely automate the decision with legal or significant effect, unless there is a contract necessity. There will be legal authorization or some explicit consent is raised when it comes to national security. So that something is basically required. And it is also aligned with the EU AI Act, a dedicated risk assessment framework for assessing the AI systems. So they categorize the, according to EU AI, we have categorized the risk toward the AI into 4 categories. We have to see this AI is part of which risk category. One is called unacceptable, high risk, limited, minimal. If I found the model with the unacceptable risk, so that product need to be banned. High risk means extensive requirements. So it demand data governance, transparency, human oversight. Limited risk, transparency obligation, so disclose the AI use, and minimal is no specific requirement, but still in all the cases GDPR has to be comply. Now the next important thing, dealing with the cloud. See, one thing you need to understand is that this is your system, okay, or this is your server, and this both, whatever you can say, is on-prem within the organization. So if you move data in the server, if you move data in the system, you know end-to-end control of the data. But when you moving both stuff in the cloud, so you're losing those control on the data. Am I clear? So one thing we need to understand is when you're moving the data in the cloud, it's difficult for you to track the privacy. It is difficult to track the control. So one thing you need to remember, when you're moving on the cloud, okay, GRC, privacy and data security is your accountability. Physical security is accountability of the cloud provider. So let's take an example. Okay, so this is the customer. Okay, he came to my bank. Now bank using a CRM to feed his data, but that CRM is hosted on the cloud. Now you need to understand one thing: as a bank need to be comply with RBI, right? Bank has to be comply with RBI. So when bank is complying with RBI tomorrow and you move data in the cloud, let's take an example. In reality in India it is not happening, but I'm giving an example. So cloud provider is accountable for the physical security because he is the one who control physically. But when you move data, tomorrow cloud is down, you are the bank who answerable to the customer. So you have to be very careful when it comes to contracts and everything. So you need to ask yourself, where is the data process? Which law will be applied? Who is the controller? Okay, is the cloud provider using sub-processors? Is the data center outside of EU? So we have to look for the cross-border data flow, shared things. So you can see data classification, all the case is a responsibility of the customer. But physical security in all the case is a responsibility of the cloud provider. Okay, so GRC in all the case is a responsibility of the customer. Now we have a data localization. It means data need to be reside in some location. So Russia has a clear requirement. Citizens data must be stored in Russia. China has the same. India also have a same. EU have, but they put a restrictions also. Indonesia make the public sector data localization. So it is also varies from country to country. Now the next is called as a HIPAA. Healthcare privacy regulation. It is focused on US. So HIPAA framework region is United States. Okay, and objective is to protect the health information. HIPAA has some requirement like privacy rule. Talk about how the PHI can be used and disclosed. We have a security rule which safeguard the electronic PHI. They also say when to report, how to report, and they have a penalty. Now there are some key concepts used in HIPAA like covered entity. It means the companies on which HIPAA is applicable. So the company who sell health plan, the one who are clearing providers, insurance providers, and clearing houses called TPA. These people are called as a business associate also. Now what they hold is PHI. Minimum necessary only access. TPO is your this one clearing house, treatment, payment, operation. Authorization definitely required. So HIPAA cover in US. Consent not required for TPO because it's part of a covered entity. Rights are access amendment, full data subject, and if any security breach happen, 60 days or sent to our authority is required. That something is part of function. So, but when it comes to financial data, in US we have a GLB FCRA state law focus on financial privacy and credit reporting. Europe we have a GDPR PSD national law which is a comprehensive data protection. International it varies from things to know. So US financial privacy, they have a GLBA which come under the different rules like financial privacy rule which say you need to be opt out for sharing with non-affiliate data. Safeguard rule mean when you're collecting data, make sure you should maintain the proper security, confidentiality, integrity, availability, and you need to also protect your data from all kind of social engineering. That something is part of function. So question is, when US collecting a financial data, they need to be comply with GLBA. So what are the key financial data types we have? Like account number balance, transaction history, credit informations, income and employments, investment portfolio, insurance data, PCDSS and all that. But challenge is basically when the API is using third party sharing with the concerned, okay, fraud preventions we have to look for. When we go for know your customers, we need to collect data. So sometimes legal obligation become a challenge. We need to report a credits also, and because of that we need to collect too much data, and sometime when you're collecting too much data, it can basically backfire. And cross-border is another important thing we have that we need to look for. Okay, so we have a next thing called employee workplace privacy, which is like employee data protection. Because people works in the company, we have employees, and they have to be also, their data is also need to be comply with data privacy. So we have to look for their name, SSN IDs, number, because SSN we are using because from a US perspective, employment, they have a job title, salary, they are very particular about, no one should know their salary, performance review, They also share their health information, disability, religion, membership, because for taxes and all that, the bank details to get the salary. Digital is email, device usage, access logs, surveillance, like they're sitting in the office, CCTV, so CCTV, GPS, keystroke logins, what they type, whatever the data we are collecting. Make sure we have to figure out what is relevant from a privacy perspective. Now in GDPR, they have a specific requirement for contract. If you're dealing with a third party vendors or you have a freelance consultant, the payment benefit, job duties need to be amended in the contract, and you have to be very clear about how you're going to collect those informations. You have to tell them about that you have to share your information with tax, so there will be legal obligations are there. Other department want to track those data for the monitoring purpose. Consent has to be taken care, because consent is a problematic for employment due to the power imbalance. That's something we have to look for. That's why we have a lot of monitoring issues in a workplace. Just like our email and internet monitoring we can't do, but problem is that from security point of view, what if they are sending some customer data on their personal email? You're getting a point. From privacy point of view, agree, but from a security point of view, it's a concern. They inform us they're working from home, but they are traveling. From a business point of view, it's a bad practice. They're lying to us. They're just misusing a law. Video surveillance, we can't install cameras, suppose, but if something happened, then keystroke logins, we have to track their idle time. Social media monitoring, what they're publishing, remote. So sometime, from a security angle, this is very important, but from privacy angle, it become a concern. Okay. Same thing happened with marketing for customers. When you're collecting customer data, like, we have a email marketing where GDPR definitely said that you need to have opt-in consent. USA can spam opt-out so that they should not receive further mails. Then there is a direct mail is coming, which is a legitimate interest. We have a few restrictions from a US perspective. Telemarketing, which is called voice over IP. We need to have a consent. Do not call list should be there. US has their own standard for that. For online agencies, we have a consent. SMS marketing has a consent. So email marketing under GDPR is B2C, business to consumer, generally required consent. B2B, generally legitimate interest may apply. We can have a soft opt-out, or we can have an unsubscribe. And when we're targeting the advertising privacy issues, like cross-site tracking from one domain to other domain, one website to other website, real-time bidding, like it can also expose a lot of data. Look like audience derived data for the customer profile, retargeting. Like example, I went to the website, I filled the form, next day I'm getting an ad from the same company. So retargeting, we have to look for that. We have to see how many are comfortable. Location based tracking. So privacy respect marketing, no doubt in that. So instead of third party data, behavior tracking, dark patterns, what we can do, we can have a first party data relationship. Someone has inquired, and according to, we can reach out to them. Second is, instead of having like someone fill the form and he starts seeing all the ads, instead of them, we can have a contextual advertisement for everyone. And genuine choice of opt-in, we have to give them. Preferred center should be there, and along with that, we can have a organic list buildings and everything. Now the question is, you want to implement the privacy in the organization. You need to build the privacy program. So we have a dedicated standards for that. Like ISO 27701 is there, which talk about privacy management system. NIST have their own privacy framework. Okay, then AICPA has some of the controls under SOC 2. APEC, Asia Pacific Economic, they also have their best practices. Then we have a privacy shield. Okay, and then we have a BCR under GDPR. So whenever you're selecting a framework, you have to select based on a geographic operation. If you're doing in US, definitely NIST have to be follow. You also need to look for the industry requirement. Then you will see what is a customer and regulator and organization maturity. So now I'm assuming you want to become a privacy expert. So how can you start? So my suggestion is that start with any law, CIPPE or CAPA-US, but preferable CIPPE from IPP certification can be best. And again, I'm telling you, I'm not here to promote any video, but I have seen one of the good content, okay, which give you a very good visibility about how things works. Is it clear? So when you're talking about this video, this tutorial, I really like this guy, his content. So let me show you that content. Just give me a second. Data privacy. And there's no harm, it's not a promotional video and all that, but ultimately I want to make sure you should get a value from this video. So if you can see this Udemy guy, this guy name is Roland. He had a very good videos which talk about the practical data privacy program. So, and best thing about his course is that he talk about the, frameworks, he talk about the templates. You can see this GDPR one, how to succeed building EU. It's really a very good course. So you can check that. And then you can complete a CIPP. Then tomorrow when you're working on any programs and all that, you can go for CIPM, or you can basically target to become a DPO. Senior level doesn't require any certification because these two certifications are enough to become a chief DPO and all that. And then you can work for privacy officer. Now from a career perspective, legal team, lawyer and all that, they can start with the Udemy program, which I said. You can check my GDPR video. You can go for CIPP. At least you need to refer one law. Okay, GDPR cover under CIPP, so you can do that. Then you can go for CIPM. CIPM talk about the how to implement the privacy management program. So only you need a certification this level. Based on this certification, you will get the experience as senior level, and then tomorrow you can work as a chief privacy officer. So you have a legal track, privacy counsel, DPO, CPO, legal background. From a technical perspective, if you are a privacy engineer, architect, CISO, so from a technical point of view, you can see this track, and managing everything, we have a management track. But one thing which is common for all three is that legal regulatory requirement is need for all three vertical. Technical understanding is required at least for this area and this area. Understanding of business is required in all three vertical. Communication is important, project management is important, risk management is important. So you can check IPP website. They talk about a lot of certifications. Even InfoSec10 is a partner for IPP. And you can check my YouTube videos on data privacy interview and GDPR. And you can keep monitoring the IPP privacy news, which can give you the good insight. And join the privacy community if you, because in privacy community, what happens is you will get a lot of learning, because in that people come from different verticals. So you will get a perspective of those people. So now what is a new trend in privacy? See, AI governance is coming. So we need to balance the privacy with AI. We are introducing a PET, which is called privacy engineering techniques, like, differential privacy, where we adding a noise, processing data in encrypted state, federated learning is there. So these are solutions we introduce. Now we have a decentralized identity, where in every location we have a self-sovereign identity, verifiable credentials, individual controlling their own identity, which is used in blockchain. Then privacy selling as a business now. We are a privacy first company winning customers, like Apple privacy marketing success, privacy become brand, and more countries are adopting now GDPR like a law and everything. So, and nowadays we have a lot of tools available in the market who say, okay, automatically you can comply for data privacy guideline. So yes, my suggestion is that if you're in a technical area, you have to look for these two things. This will be the game changer. Yeah. And if you want a detailed video on this, I can create a detailed video on this. Don't worry. Okay. Now, next is called about the privacy challenges. So first challenge we have is called cross-border data transfer. There's a lot of scheme decisions creating uncertainty, because company in one location, data in another location. So, and you want to transfer the data. So sometimes it become a challenge. Billion of devices collecting data. So lack of privacy or design. You're wearing a smartwatch and all that. You are not sure about where the data store. It's difficult to verify if the children is using a parent's phone to check the social media, or they're using their. So it's difficult for us to track that. Sometimes algorithm AI do biasness and they need data, but problem is that with privacy, we cannot give them too much data. Biometric data become a surveillance concern, employee monitoring become other concerns. So the best practice is that start with design, because you spend good amount of time in design, because design is a space where you can spend good amount of things. Because if you're going to add privacy in later stage, it will be more expensive. Document everything, maintain the ROPA, DPIA, consent records, everything. Focus always risk-based approach, focus on risk on high risk, prioritize that, build the transparency, because that help you to build the trust. Privacy is everyone's job, but you are accountable. Continuous improvement is required. That's something we need to consider. But one more important thing you need to have is privacy myth. Example, we don't have a personal data. Reality is that everyone know your IP address, device ID. That's why in this cab aggregator app, if you're having iPhone, you will see different prices. And if you're having Android, we have a different prices. Second is myth. Consent solve everything, which is not true. Third is privacy and security are the same. Reality, they are different. Security protect data, privacy govern the appropriate use. GDPR only apply in Europe. No. Extra scope apply to processing EU resident data regardless of location. Even InfoSec 10 in India collecting data, GDPR is applicable. Small companies are exempt. No. And minimization is easy. No. It's very difficult. So understand these myths and help to avoid the compliance mistake. That's why nowadays company is building a program maturity model. Initially what happened, there's no formal program, everything we react and according to that we adjust. It means our process is ad hoc. See, what is maturity? The first day when you join the organization and today you can see the difference, right? Maturity come with experience. So if you take an example of, let's say example, this is the company and this is the process they have. So through this process, we build the product. If process is ineffective, the product will be ineffective, right? So it's very important to improve the process. So when you improve the process, you improve the output. So level 1 is called ad hoc. It means there's no program. Then we have a level 2, which is called developing, where we have a basic policy, some process, limited resource, compliance focus. Then we have a level 3, which is called define, where we document the program, we look for the dedicated resource, we have a regular training, proactive approach. Then we have a level 4, which is called manage, which is called integrated program, metrics and monitoring. We have a risk-based function, privacy by design. And then we have a level 5 where we already have a program and we look for the continuous function. So our goal is to start from level 1 and reach the level 5. Okay. So how you assess your privacy program? Start with the top-down approach, start with governance. If governance is strong, then you have a policy strong. If policy is strong, then you have a risk management strong. Risk management give you the clarity about the controls and everything. According to that, you will improve your training and awareness. According to that, you need to see the how educate the technology, vendor managements, metrics and reporting and all that. So most of the organizations start from level 1 or 2 or 3 and they aim for the realistic will be level 4. So your action plan is first assess the current state. Conduct the privacy gap assessment, identify compliance gap, understand the data flow. Second, follow the risk-based approach, focus on the high risk. Then build the foundation, governance structure, data privacy policies, inventory, training program, and then implement the controls on those inventory. Then we look for the monitoring and then we look for the improve continuously. So week 1, executive buy-in, form the privacy team. Month 2, data inventory and quarterly core policies and all that. So the key takeaway is privacy is a fundamental right. Privacy by design has to be done. Privacy is everyone's job. Global convergence is there and accountability is the key and continuous learning is very important. So congratulations. So you have completed the company's journey through the data privacy fundamental and I will be wait for your feedback because your feedback is very important and your feedback will change the perspective of my content. And do let me know what is the best thing you like about this content. And looking forward for more videos from my side definitely, but in returns I'm expecting some comments from you that what kind of videos you want from me on data privacy. And we're looking forward for more feedbacks. And if you're new to the channel, do subscribe to the channel and click on the bell icon to make sure you should not miss my future videos on a similar topic. Good day. Bye.